This is a wrap-up of the 2016 South African National Rally Championship, brought to you by Dunlop, Ford Performance, Toyota and Volkswagen. 2016 has been a year of extremes in so many ways. Starters that didn't finish the season, slow starters that ended the season on massive highs, old hands and newbies, some that grew from one class to the next and others making the change from regionals to nationals. It was a year of two-horse races in one class and a fight to the end, certainly for second and third places in the other. It was a year of diminishing fields and major decisions. The opening round of the championship got Free State Motorsports fans adrenaline pumping as the series headed to the centre of the country for the first time in 6 years. Round 2 was the Sasol Rally, the crown jewel in the South African Rally Championship, with a reputation for close, tough competition amongst SA's rallying elite. The third round was also in Mpumalanga, but further south this time at the Graceland Casino. The rest of the Secunda Rally was hosted on the banks of Lake Umuzi. Round 4 was the 34th Volkswagen Rally through some of the most scenic parts of the Eastern Cape, followed by the second new event on the rally calendar with a return to Heidelberg for the first time in more than 20 years. The Toyota Cape Dealer Rally was split between the Killarney International Raceway on day 1 and spectacular gravel stages in the Malmesbury area on day 2. The grand finale had the teams returning to Gauteng for the Hall Speed Rally in Bronkhorstspruit. We start the program with a final wrap of the S2000 class after 12 great years. The Goldfields Rally featured 11 stages, all of which were run twice. Conditions were dry and dusty, and in many places quite rocky. As a result, attrition was high, and there were only 9 finishes at the end of the event. The start of the year is always a bit frenetic as people prepare for the season. Some seem to do it with ease, some manage a flying finish, like Marc Cronier, who just managed to get ready for the event, and some just didn't make it, like Thien Schubert and Luc Boerter, who did not make an appearance at Goldfields. As the defending champion, Marc Cronier was an important player going into the season, and his switch to a VW Polo also generated huge interest. On arrival at Pakisa, he'd had the car for 2 weeks and only managed 250 kilometers of testing, not nearly enough for a new car and a new navigator going into a brand new rally. This said, he surprised everyone by taking the first stage and holding the lead by a whisk overnight. But after stage 3, it was quite apparent that things weren't going well. Mark and Barry hemorrhaged time in the sometimes rough stages, and a puncture didn't help their cause either. The stage was essentially set for the season with a battle between Leroy and Janelle. All 5 of the S2000s finished the rally, but it was Leroy Poulter and Elvin Coetzee that drew first blood for the season. Teammates Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan finished in second, and Marc Cronier and Barry White in the new Africa Developments VW Polo in third place. The 25th Sasol Rally took place in late April and marked a change in tradition with the start and finish in Sabi this year. Another change was the hot, dusty conditions, as this is usually an extremely wet and muddy event.
You've got to be really careful. There's a lot of jumps here as well that can catch you out, and then a lot of stumps, all over the, on the outer sections of the corners, so you've got to be very careful.
Though most of the action was in Sabi, the famous Spaghetti Junction Super Special stages in Nelspruit and the White River Tar stage still featured in the event. Ernie van der Walt and Greg Godrich were the first casualties of the rally. They rolled their Vecto Petroleum Toyota Yaris into a ball of scrap just 1.7 kilometers into the rally. Fortunately, they walked away from the wreck unharmed. Leroy Poulter and Elvin Coetzee dominated the rally, leading from start to finish in their Toyota Gazoo Racing Yaris. The 2014 champions took a firm hold from the first stage, holding an overnight lead of 29 seconds over teammates Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan. They bore the brunt of Toyota's bad luck, needing a gearbox change on day 1 after a front differential failed. On day 2, they lost 1 minute and 40 seconds after hitting a rock which broke a wheel and ended any hope they harboured of challenging for the top step of the podium. Wilro Dippenaar and Kes Naidu in their PZN panel beaters Ford Fiesta finished third in S2000 after battling with clutch problems and a huge time loss of 8 minutes when they left the road in stage 11. They fought back to secure a solid 4th place overall, but this was their second and final finish for the year. They missed the VW Rally and were plagued by technical problems for the rest of the season. Round 3 of the 2016 National Rally Championship was our second outing in Secunda, a rally enjoyed by everyone because it was compact, spectator-friendly, challenging for the teams and, what made it even more exceptional, completely locally owned. The Secunda Rally was run out of the passion and dedication of people and businesses of Secunda. The start to the Secunda Rally was definitely not predicted when Wilro Dippenaar and Kes Naidu took stage victory. But the two Toyota Gazoo racing teams were having none of that and swapped the lead stage by stage in one of the most thrilling rally duels seen in the past couple of seasons. At the start of the final 3.4 kilometre stage, Leroy's once comfortable 5-second lead was whittled down to 1.2 seconds and both teams had everything to play for. Leroy Poulter put in a perfect performance to claim his and Elvin Kutse's third consecutive victory of the season and with it a 12-point lead in the championship standings. Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan were forced to settle for second, but it made it really clear that they were after a win. The fight for third and fourth places was equally riveting as Ernie van der Walt and Gerard Snyman engaged in a fierce battle with Wilro Dippenaar and Kes Naidu. Dippenaar held third place overnight, but Ernie struck back and held the final podium place for a couple of stages before Dippenaar dropped out with alternator problems. This was a career-best result for Ernie and his maiden podium. The fourth round of the championship saw continuation of the 34-year love affair the Eastern Cape has had with the Volkswagen Rally. It presented 12 stages and 186 rally kilometres through some of the most scenic parts of the province. It started from the Volkswagen Auto Pavilion in Uitenhage and followed a spectator-friendly format with 2 stages at Jachtvlakte, 1 at Mission Road, a super special at the PE Oval and a mixed surface night stage at the new Bay West Mall on day 1. On day 2, the rally headed to its traditional home in the Longmoor Forest. It started from Bay West Mall and headed for the famous Kalturama and Spekboom Lapa stages before tackling short, medium and long versions of the rather infamous PPC stage. Leroy Poulter and Elvin Kutse dominated the rally, powering their Toyota Gazoo Racing Yaris to a comfortable 1 minute 51 second victory after winning 8 of the 12 stages. Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan were left in their wake over the breathtakingly fast stages, run high in the mountains of the Longmoor Forest, and only managed 4 stage wins on their way to second place. It was Toyota's 4th consecutive 1-2 finish in the championship. Leading retirements included Luke Boerter and Barry White in their Force Fuel Ford Fiesta, who dropped out of 4th place with a broken drive shaft. Ernie van der Walt and Gerard Snyman left the road in stage 10 when they ran wide and landed in a ditch, unharmed but immobile. The final result was 2 S2000 finishes. The Heidelberg Rally proved to be a tough weekend, not only because it was a new event for all the competitors, but also because 3 stages on day 1 took place after sundown, which put a massive emphasis on driver and navigator communication skills, a new and exciting experience for the teams. After overcoming a multitude of challenges, including big rocks, cattle, a pack of dogs and some spectator antics, Leroy Poulter and Elvin Kutse won 10 of the 13 stages and took their 5th straight victory of the year. This moved them into a virtually unassailable lead in the SA Rally Championship. Ernie van der Walt and Gerard Snyman surprised all with their sheer pace in Ernie's final rally of the year. They ran ahead of Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan as early as stage 3 and took 3 stage wins to secure the 2nd step on the podium. Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan retired after Saturday's first stage with a double puncture. Jens Joubert and his 18-year-old co-driver Mari van der Walt ran a strong event, proving that consistency counts by earning their first overall podium. Going into the penultimate round of the SA Rally Championship, the Toyota crews held the aces. If Poulter won again, it was game, set and match. If de Villiers won, the title rally would go to round 7. Having said that, both de Villiers and Poulter had massive accidents on this event last year and neither finished. Rallying is that unpredictable. Killarney Raceway hosted the first 4 stages. The first super special stage was run at dusk, with 2 cars competing against each other and the clock. The final stage, another super special, ran in the dark and was really entertaining, keeping their spectators there right to the end, in spite of the bitterly cold and windy weather. The small town of Malmesbury hosted the Saturday stages. Janelle de Villiers and Carolyn Swan took command of the rally from the first stage. They had an overnight lead of 6.7 seconds and won 6 of Saturday's 8 stages to build a winning margin of 5 minutes and 52.1 seconds. Leroy Poulter and Elvin Coetzee in a vain chase cut a corner too tightly and sliced 2 tyres open, settling for second for the first time this year. It was enough for them to clinch the 2016 South African Rally Championship, Leroy's second title and a hat-trick for Elvin. Third overall was Tiens Hubert and Mari van der Walt after a clean run, until the final stage when the Toyota clipped a gatepost, which rearranged the front of the previously immaculate car. The final event of the year, the Hall Speed Rally, was a somber one. It closed the S2000 chapter in South Africa's rich rally history. Both the S2000 and S1600 championships were settled at the previous event. Both Yaris S2000s had been sold, which meant that Toyota would be absent as a works entrant for the first time since the mid-1970s. It was an 8-stage rally totaling 146 competitive kilometres. 2 speed tests were run on Friday afternoon and the remaining 6 stages on Saturday. Luke Boerter and Barry White inscribed their names in the history books when they took their maiden national rally victory. The Ford Fiesta, liveried in a tribute S2000 colour scheme for the occasion, led from start to finish, barring a brief moment after stage 3 and in spite of alternator problems during day 2. Boerter won 6 of the 8 stages, chased hard on the opening day by Wilro Dippenaar and Kes Naidu in their Toyota Auris S2000. Dippenaar took the lead after stage 3, opening up a 12-second gap. But in stage 4, disaster struck the Toyota crew when the car ground to a halt with engine failure. With the S2000 Championship wrapped up, not just for the year but for good, we shift our focus to the S1600 class. Just before the middle of the season, the National Rally Championship Steering Committee made the difficult but necessary decision to implement changes to the Championship Series for 2017. In essence, it marked the end of the S2000 and the shift to a single class, the S1600 or R2 class. This immediately uprated the importance of this class and almost shifted focus, since this was now the class of the future. It also happened to be the class providing the most excitement, if not for the first place in the championship, certainly for second and third steps on the overall podium. Right from the start of the first round, the Goldfields Rally, it was situation normal, with Guy Bottrell, who was celebrating his 30th birthday, taking a comfortable 36-second win. This gave him and Simon Vasey-Lyle an early lead in their challenge for a 3rd consecutive championship. The Yatu Tools Toyota Etios never missed a beat in the sweltering conditions as they built up their lead over Richard Leek and Henry Koerner in the P1 Nutrition ATS Ford Fiesta. Leek won 4 stages but was hampered in the others by fuel pump problems. Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries drove their Manitou Volkswagen Polo to 3rd place, although nearly 6 minutes adrift of the winners. Engine problems on day 1 cost sufficient time to make a wild challenge for the lead unviable. George Smallberger and Chris Brand in their Shield Car Care VW Polo were the final finishers, more than good enough for them since this was their first national event and the transition from regional to national is more challenging than expected. The rally took its toll as it usually does, thinning out the field, and the first to go, as early as stage 1, was the Lekumuzi VW Polo of RC Potgieter and Tommy Dutoy. Ashley Haig-Smith and Niall Burns in the AHS Ford Fiesta retired with a crank sensor failure in stage 2. Chris Coetzee and Robbie Coetzee in the Electro Thread Toyota Etios left their rear suspension in a field, while Andrew Heine and Lloyd Brady retired their Heine Sport VW Polo with engine problems. Marco Himmel and Nico Swartz in a Vecto Petroleum Ford Fiesta R2 ran in 2nd place, but also succumbed to engine problems. At the Sassel Rally, double champions Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle made history when they took the final step of the overall podium, the first ever appearance of an S1600 car since the introduction of the class. This was after a storming drive over the 14-stage 221-kilometre route, giving Toyota their first 1-2-3 of the year. Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries took the second step and their second podium for the season. Andrew Heine and Lloyd Brady completed the S1600 podium. The catastrophe of the event was when Richard Leake and Henry Kierner rolled their Ford Fiesta through the flying finish on the penultimate stage, moments away from their first victory. They walked away from the wreck unharmed, but bitterly disappointed. In Secunda, another sterling drive by Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle saw the KwaZulu-Natal team also take their third win on the trot and fourth place overall. Local hero and residents Asie Potgieter and co-driver Tommy du Toit brought their Lake Umuzi Volkswagen Polo home in second place after a trouble-free drive. This was Asie's first podium and an indication that he was a likely contender in the championship. Third on the podium was the resurgent Andrew Heine and co-driver Lloyd Brady. They seemed to be going from strength to strength, but sadly, this was their last appearance on the podium for the year. Chris Kutzer and Robbie Kutzier had a brand new Electro-Thread Toyota Etios at their disposal, and besides a seized shock absorber, brought their car home in a satisfactory fourth place. Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries had a rally fraught with clutch issues. They changed their gearbox and seemed to have addressed the issue when they lost second gear in the third last stage. They limped home to a disappointing fifth place finish. Local landowner Kusi van der Merwe and his co-driver Koen van Sail won the NRC 4 class in the Subaru Impreza STI, finishing ninth overall. Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle were back on the overall podium at the VW Rally. With only two S2000 finishes, they took third overall and first in the S1600 class. They had a near faultless run, but in the latter stages of the event, the Etios developed gearbox problems that the crew thought would be alright until the end. In the penultimate stage, the car was stuck in fourth gear, limping uphill with Bottrell slipping the clutch to maintain momentum, but they made it to the finish. Asie Potgieter and Tommy du Toit ended a superb second, in spite of suffering from rear brake failure in stage 9 after a stone punctured a pipe. Richard Leake and Henry Kierner completed the podium. The Ford pair suffered a misfire throughout the event and complete brake failure in stages 7 and 8. Two stages run without a service brake. They backed off on the final loop of stages to ensure their first finish in 3 outings. Chris Kutzer and Greg Godrich ended fourth in class, claiming a stage win along the way. The final finishers were Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries, the Cape Town pairing retiring with a broken side shaft before the first corner of stage 2. Running Saturday stages under Super Rally rules, they set competitive times, but could not overcome their 20 minutes of penalties. There were only 7 finishers in total out of 30 entries. Fallout included Andrew Heine and Lloyd Brady when they suffered a broken tie rod in stage 8, coming to rest on the edge of a precipice. They definitely weren't in control when it happened and were lucky the outcome wasn't any worse considering the circumstances. Ashley Haig-Smith and Niall Burns retired their Fiesta after landing on a rock in stage 2, while George Smallberger and Chris Brand exited the event on the open section en route to Saturday's first stage after suffering a differential failure. There were huge celebrations in the S1600 class when Richard Leake and Henry Kierner claimed their career first victory. The ATS P1 Nutrition crew took the lead on day 1 of the Heidelberg Rally, with perennial winners Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle lurking 5.5 seconds behind after Friday's action. Bottrell chased Leake hard and caught the Ford pair, 0.3 seconds to the good after 12 stages. With 20 kilometres and 2 stages remaining, Leake threw caution to the wind, while simultaneously Bottrell was hampered with a misfire, leaving Leake with a handy 14.2 second cushion. It wasn't without challenge, as Leake had overheating issues, but he was ecstatic at the finish and really enjoyed the battle with Guy, which was great for spectators too. Behind Bottrell, 2 more happy first-time podium visitors, Chris Kutzer and Greg Godrich. Chris Kutzer is a consistent campaigner who rarely makes a serious error, so it was a great result for him. Ashley Haig-Smith and Niall Burns brought their Ford Fiesta home in 4th place, ahead of Asie Potgieter and Tommy du Toit. Potgieter had held 2nd place midway through the event, but rolled on stage 10. It was a slow roll, but enough to push them down the order, while Haig-Smith had to change the Fiesta's fuel pump at every service to keep it running. George Smallberger and Chris Brand finished their first event since April, whilst Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries rounded out the top 10. They retired in Stage 5 with Melted Electrics, running Super Rally on Saturday. Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle went into the Toyota Cape Dealer Rally wanting to perform for their event sponsor Toyota, but knowing that they actually needed a 0 score to secure the championship. As it happened, fate intervened and they crashed their Etios into a gatepost in Stage 8. The non-finish and 0 points became their dropped score for the year and bagged their third title in succession. This gave Richard Leake and Henry Kierner their second consecutive S1600 victory, although they came under pressure from Paulus Franken and Pierre Aries late in the rally. After the Flying VW crew won 5 stages, it was settled in the penultimate stage when the two rivals set virtually identical times, but Richard was far enough ahead to claim the top step. RC Potgieter and Tommy du Toit brought their VW Polo home to yet another podium in spite of losing second gear in Stage 6 and having to run stages 7 and 8 before they could get to the Dunlop service zone to replace the faulty unit. Chris Kutzer and Greg Godrich battled on the tarmac stages with failing brakes. A change of brake fluid solved that problem, but then power steering issues kept them off the podium pace. They were happy to end 4th in class. George Smallberger and Chris Brand ended 5th after losing 24 minutes in Stage 8 when the drive shaft kept falling out, forcing them to stop each time to put it back. Other retirements included Ashley Haig-Smith and Niall Burns, who rolled out in Saturday's first stage. Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle were back on form in the final round of the season, the Hall Speed Rally. They finished first in class and second overall, making it their 5th victory of the year and a triple S1600 championship. They had a comfortable 36-second cushion over Namibian Marco Himmel and Rikus Fourie in their Electro Thread Toyota Etios. This was Himmel's first appearance since the Goldfields Rally and an excellent performance under the circumstances. He and Rikus survived a near roll in the penultimate stage. Richard Leake and Henry Kierner missed out on an overall podium place by a scant 2.3 seconds. The gap between Himmel and Leake was a constant 16 seconds until Stage 6, when it dropped to 6 seconds. After Stage 7, Himmel had only 1.7 seconds in hand, but a superb drive by the young Namibian saw the final gap open up, so Leake had to be content with 3rd spot. RC Potgieter and Tommy du Toit brought their Volkswagen Polo home in 4th place after overcoming handling problems. The pair had also entered the concurrently run Northern Regions Rally Championship, which they won in the process, much to their delight. Rounding out the national finishes, George Smallberger and Chris Brand were delighted to end their first season in national rallying with a strong finish. They had a clean run through the 146-kilometre event. Leading the retirements were the impressive newcomers Jono van Wyk and Scott Howden in their Swazi Cowboy Ford Fiesta. Van Wyk looked immediately at home in the S1600 and was running in 6th place when the crew had exhaust problems. Chris Kutzer and Greg Godrich managed to roll twice in 18 hours. The first time at the end of Stage 2 and the second time in Stage 3. The Toyota Gazoo racing pairs took the top 2 positions with 92 and 64 points respectively. Ernie van der Walt and Mari van der Walt took the 3rd step on the Driver and Navigator Championships respectively. Both competed with different partners in the series. The S1600 was a case of perfect pairs in the top 3. Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle first, followed by Richard Leake and Henry Kierner, with 3rd place going to RC Potgieter and Tommy du Toit. That's a wrap of 2016. Here's a glimpse of what we have planned for 2017.
2017 will be a really exciting year for us, where the 1600 cars will be our premier class, and we expect up to 10, if not more, cars to be really competitive, really fast drivers, all battling it out for split seconds over the stages. And that is the spectacle that we're trying to create here, is having more cars in one class, all racing very competitively, nose to nose.
The new National Rally Steering Committee provides a good balance of youth and experience. The committee is focused on the vested interests of all competitors, the organising of quality events, as well as ensuring stable and long-term relationships with our existing and future partners. The championship will offer a high level of competition, close rallying, entertainment, and a new level of social media marketing that will not disappoint. The 2017 National Rally Championship will comprise 7 events. It starts in KZN on the south coast. The next 2 events are in Mpumalanga, one in Sabi and the other in Secunda. Then we move to Port Elizabeth, followed by an event in Gauteng, one in Cape Town and the final in Welkom. For any information from now until the start of next season, follow SA Rallying on Facebook or go to our website sarallying.co.za.
130 over